So hopefully everyone can see the presentation that we've prepared for you today. Just by way of introduction, I'm Andy Edwards, Head of UK Field Sales for Quartix. Just want to firstly thank you all for joining our webinar today on safer vehicles, safer drivers. We've chosen this topic because it closely aligns with the Safe Vehicles, Save Lives theme from this year's Road Safety Week run by Brake, who, if you're not familiar with, are a fantastic charity that help many thousands of people each year affected by road crashes in the UK. Quartix are very much a staunch advocate of Brake and their campaigns for safer roads, and as such will be donating to their charity on behalf of all webinar attendees today. So thank you all very much for taking the time out of your day to support this cause. We really appreciate it. I can see from the poll you completed, we've got a good mix of organisations here today, all with varying fleet sizes, which is great because ultimately you all manage staff that drive for work, you all have a responsibility to fulfil, and that's regardless of fleet size. So we hope each of you can take something away from our presentation. We hope you'll find it informative. So just to give you an idea in terms of what we're going to cover over the course of the webinar, we've scheduled in an hour. I'm hoping to give you some time back on that, but we're going to start by explaining why van and driver safety is such an important issue for employees. We'll then provide some real-world insights from one of our long-standing customers, Morson Vital. You can see a picture of one of their nice liveried welfare vans on screen here, looking nice and clean. And we'll share their successful approach to managing fleet safety. We'll explain how using digital pre-use checks has helped prevent incidents and improve defect reporting, how telematics data was used to monitor driver behaviour and driver fatigue, a big area of concern for them, to reduce accident risk, and in implementing connected dashcams, how they've improved first notification of loss, protected against fraudulent claims, and significantly reduced insurance costs. We'll finish off by just summarising some key practical steps that every organisation can take to improve and create a strong fleet culture. Unfortunately, due to other business commitments, the fleet manager from Morson Vital can't be here in person to co-present with me, so I'll be presenting on their behalf. Through the course of the meeting, my colleagues will also be running a couple of polls just to get your feedback and opinions on the topics we cover, and then we'll finish off with some Q&A. So if you can kindly use the question section on the portal to submit any queries you may have, I can address those for you at the end of the session. So as I alluded to a moment ago, I thought a good place to kick off would just be to restate why road safety is a critical issue. You can see some key accident rate figures on here on screen here from last year. Sad facts really: 1,600 people killed on British roads. It's an average of 5 deaths per day. Nearly 15 times that amount, 28,000 are seriously injured. And if you can combine both those figures, it means that roughly every 17 minutes or so, someone is killed or seriously injured on UK roads. So very hard-hitting facts that speak for themselves, really. And we've also there Brake estimate that work-related traffic collisions contribute to a third of all UK road deaths, which really highlights the high risk that driving for work carries. So we hope that through our presentation today, sharing some best practice on how one of our customers has helped improve road safety, that you can all take something away from our session to help reduce occupational road risk in your business. If we move on to some interesting facts now on vehicle safety, research by Brake estimate 2,000 accidents on UK roads each year are a result of vehicle defects. Over 20,000 vans are inspected by the DVSA. More than half of those are found with major defects. According to the Office for Traffic Commissioner, it's estimated 85% of roadworthy infringements could be avoided if the driver had performed a walk-around check beforehand, beginning a journey. So as you're all aware, unlike truck drivers, van drivers are not subject to the same level of stringent laws and legislation, so it's very much left in the organisation's hands and at their discretion in advocating how and when pre-use vehicle checks should be carried out. And from our experience, that can be a little bit of a grey area and poorly managed by some fleet operators, which can leave them exposed to unnecessary risk. And to further illustrate that point, we've got some MOT failure rates there, which is 4 times higher than HGVs. And we've also noted down some figures on tyre safety, highlighting that 1 in 3 drivers never check their tyres, which indicates drivers are not fully aware of the safety, financial or loss of licence implications of doing so. And finally, a study by the RAC shows that 61% of drivers surveyed don't actually know the legal tread depth of a tyre, which suggests more could be done to educate drivers on van safety. Finally, in regards to driver safety and why it matters, I'm sure it comes as no surprise, driver behaviour is the primary cause of road incidents. The Department for Transport figures last year confirm excessive speed to that of either the road speed limit or excessive speed according to road conditions at the time was a contributing factor in 59% of all fatal collisions last year. Police statistics also show that fatigue contributed to about 4% of fatal road accidents and 2% of all collisions in Britain. However, that true figure is likely to be much higher, as fatigue is hard to spot, and unlike alcohol and drugs, you can't test for tiredness. So as you're all aware, organisations have a legal obligation and a duty of care in monitoring driver behaviour to ensure drivers' vehicles are driven for work in a very safe manner, and we all know the consequences in the failure to do that can not only result in financial and reputational damage to the organisation, but also far more serious than that, loss of life and a potential custodial sentence, which clearly nobody wants to happen. So as those sort of cold facts, if you like, and figures demonstrate, both van and driver safety should be a key priority for all organisations operating vehicles. However, there is evidence to suggest perhaps more could be done in terms of educating drivers on ensuring vehicles are roadworthy and safe to drive, and the importance of upholding the highest standards of driving at all times. So we're curious to understand what your organisation's view is on the risks associated with driving for work, and just wanted to run another quick poll just to get your feedback on this, which will pop up in a moment. If you can, we'll give it a minute for responses to come in on this before moving on to the next section. Okay, so we've ended that. Quite interesting results there. We've got 6% that don't communicate at all, 25% a quarter. It's including the health and safety policy. The majority, 62%, clearly communicate responsibility for safe drive, which is great to hear, and that you're taking that responsibility seriously and cascading that down to drivers. And then we've got 9%, just short of 10%, that regularly provide training and reinforce that message. So just moving on now to provide a real world case study on how one of our customers has approached van safety and driver safety, and share some tips and best practice examples, which we hope you'll find beneficial. Before we do that, we just thought we'd provide a brief background on their business, if we may. So the customer is Morson Vital. They're a manual labour supplier to the UK rail sector, and they deliver a wide range of services from track renewals and civil works through to security, trespass and vandalism patrols across the breadth of the country. Quite often for their drivers, no 2 days are the same, as the workload can be very reactive based, and while some drivers are lone workers with one man in a van, conversely other drivers are travelling up and down the country with 9-man crews inside. The business has been going for 40 years, a head office based in Manchester, and they've grown organically and through acquisition to now operate from 23 depots nationwide, 1,000 employees, an annual turnover exceeding 175 million. From a fleet perspective, as you can see on screen here with their fleet profile, it's a very large and diverse LCV fleet, 650 vehicles in total and growing. And our relationship began over 10 years ago in 2014, when Morson Vital moved across to Quartix from another telematics system supplied through their vehicle hire provider. Keith Woodcock is the group fleet manager at Morson Vital. He's been in post there for 17 years. But he's got over 40 years experience in the transport industry. Probably won't thank me for telling you all that, but he started out as a trained technician before progressing on to various fleet managerial roles. So Keith and he's got a great fleet team there at Morson that support him. They work very hard to promote a company-wide culture where fleet safety is really paramount and treated as a core part of the business's duty of care. So how have they done that? Well, you can see we've outlined a simple framework which Morson Vital have followed, which involves educating drivers on the risk of driving for work carries, setting high standards of driving and what is expected of them, and then putting the right systems in place to track performance and ensure high standards are continuously met. And this methodology, which we'll dive into more detail on over the coming slides, has really helped Morson Vital to ingrain safer driver habits and create a safety first mentality across the workforce. And we'll provide some further context on this and more Vital's experience in each of these areas, starting with educating drivers. So as I mentioned, Morson Vital drivers work on the rail network. That in itself carries a significant level of risk, as you can imagine. But despite the at-risk environment their operatives work in, what Keith has instilled is a mentality that, albeit driving only represents, in some cases, a very small percentage of the operative's total shift time, all drivers are acutely aware that driving is the most dangerous activity they will undertake at work. And statistically, they're more likely to be killed or seriously injured in a road traffic accident travelling to and from the job than they are working on the trackside. And Keith and his team have been very proactive in ensuring this message is consistently cascaded out to all drivers to put into perspective the high risk factor that driving for work carries. So from initial driver inductions and handbooks issued through to toolbox talks and quarterly health and safety stand down days where road safety is an integral theme on the agenda, it's also featured as focal point in the company newsletter, and that's distributed out to all drivers. So as an example, the most recent newsletter focuses on educating drivers on the risks associated with winter driving and advises them to modify behaviours in line with the changing road conditions. And then finally, as part of Ford's accreditation, which Morson Vital hold, all of their drivers have to complete 2 online courses each year, which, coupled with all of the above steps taken by the business, serves as an ongoing and constant reminder on the importance of road safety and the risk driving for work carries. I think it's fair to say the driving standards were certainly a lot lower when Keith joined the business, and the common view shared by most of their drivers was that the vehicle was somewhat of a necessity just to get to and from the job. And that statement may well resonate with some of you on the call today. Therefore, in order to raise standards, Keith and his fleet team have reframed how operatives think about driving, instilled in them that as soon as the driver turns the ignition on, they are at work. And this statement has been used as very much a guiding principle endorsed by their motto of work safe, home safe, which is plastered across their vehicle fleet to reinforce that message every day. So drivers adhere to the highest safety standards door to door. And by Keith communicating that clear and consistent message about safe driving expectations, it's really helped transform driver behaviour across the organisation. Morson's fleet has tripled in size from when Keith joined, and it's expanded geographically from local depots now to a nationwide of 23 sites across the country, with new drivers coming into the business on a regular basis, all with varying levels of awareness regarding safety and procedures. It was critical for Keith that the business put in place more robust systems to better manage this, which included digital pre-use vehicle inspection checks, telematics to report on fatigue and behaviours, all of which have helped Keith and his team track performance and ensure drivers adhere to the same high standard of compliance nationally. So one of the key safety initiatives that Keith has introduced is an electronic pre-use vehicle check system. And prior to this, the business used to use paper to perform vehicle checks, which presented several drawbacks, with records often getting misplaced or damaged by drivers down the back of the seat, which jeopardised compliance and audit trails. The paper checks were also very time consuming, not only for Morson drivers to manually complete, but also for admin staff to then collect and process, leading to slower defect reporting and delay in repairs. And without a secure time and location stamp, it was challenging for Keith to prove when and where a check was performed, for how long and by who, leading to very inconsistent standards across depots and a lack of evidence. So switching to QCheck, which is a digital inspection system developed by Quartix, has been a real game changer for Morson Vital. It's really revolutionised how they manage vehicle safety. You know, Quartix are renowned. I know we've got some customers on the call today. I think we're renowned for keeping our telematics system reporting very simple and easy to use. The driver interface shown on screen through QCheck here does exactly that in a simple step-by-step process, empowering drivers to perform far more efficient checks, with all defects reported at Morson now acted on same day, and the majority of defects fixed within 48 hours, which contributes to safer roads for everyone. So just to take away the key points on how Morson Vital manage van safety, carrying out vehicle inspections is the main task that the drivers have to perform. They're doing that on a daily basis as part of van maintenance. To ensure vehicle checks are carried out correctly, processes followed and well managed, the fleet team via our inspection app capture the time of day, the location, the duration of the check, to ensure checks are carried out diligently before the vehicle is taken out on the road. And drivers are able to take photographs of any defects through the app, which the fleet team then categorise and prioritise to react to safety critical defects and breakdowns with immediate effect, ensuring that unsafe vehicles do not remain on the road. And as an additional compliance measure, Morson Vital's team of safety inspectors will carry out random spot checks on a selection of vehicles to ensure the vehicle inspection is being carried out to a high standard before the vehicle goes out. So in summary, digitalizing that process, the vehicle check process, has really streamlined the inspection process. It's improved accuracy, reliability, and record keeping. It's ensured that all checks are documented, any issues are promptly addressed, and this, alongside other health and safety systems, is supporting Morson Vital with retaining their FORS accreditation. Before we move on to the next section of our presentation on driver safety, again, we're interested just to know how many of you currently carry out vehicle checks, and if so, how often. So 2 quick polls. Again, very grateful for your feedback. If we could just firstly ask how many of you carry out checks. Appreciate everyone's candor on this. Okay, 95%. I think that gives us a good picture. Obviously, paper, is better than nothing. Let's face it. We appreciate and we hear that some customers, it might be a common challenge for you that drivers have not got the technology to support the app and doing the checks, which is fair enough. We get that. The digital system app, really, great to hear that 40% of you have realised the value and worth in digitalising that process. And for those of you that haven't, 8%, we appreciate your candour there. And obviously, hopefully, just by going through some of those statistics that we've mentioned there and the impact that poor van maintenance can have on road risk, hopefully that'll encourage you to perhaps carry out paper checks at a minimum moving forward. So for those of you that do both paper and digital checks, can we just understand whether you're doing them daily, weekly, monthly? If we open up the next poll, just to understand frequency of. Thank you. Okay, well, I think 83% is a great response. Thank you, everyone. We've got 60%, so majority are doing daily, which is best practice. 23% weekly, 9% monthly. So thank you very much. That's really useful for us to understand. And we'll go back into the next section of the presentation now to cover off driver safety. So that's come through now. So we saw at the start of the session that driver behaviour is the single biggest cause of road traffic collisions. That will come as no surprise, I'm sure, to you all. And when you have staff driving for work, ultimately it's your responsibility as an employer to uphold safety standards when it comes to how vehicles are driven and the precautions taken. And we've noted some potential risk factors that Morson Vital have identified and successfully addressed, which include speed and aggressive driving styles that don't leave adequate braking distances for hazards unfolding ahead, distractions within the cab, whether that's drivers using the mobile phones or other in-cab activities that might be taking their attention away from the road. Stress and pressure to meet deadlines. It's all of our responsibility, particularly Morson Vital's responsibility as duty as employers, to make sure that the staff, albeit they work in a time-sensitive industry in the rail network, they're not put under unreasonable pressure to get to and from site, and in turn that might cause them then to rush and put safety and the safety of other road users at risk. And similarly, it's important to regularly check in with drivers to ensure that lack of sleep, medical impairments, long driving hours, etc., are not putting them at risk behind the wheel. And given the critical nature of work that Morson Vital staff undertake, fatigue and driving hours are managed extremely closely, and we'll come on to this in a bit more detail shortly. Ultimately, all of these risk factors underline the need for driver behaviour monitoring and feedback to help reduce accident risk within your company. And we'll now cover off some of the key reports our system delivers that Morson Vital are using in their daily operations to help manage this. So Keith and his team have been very hands-on with what you can do with telematics data to ensure their operatives are driving responsibly and to improve driving standards and driving safety. And that's been reflected in the fact that Morson Vital's accident rates have reduced over the last 3 years, despite their fleet size increasing significantly. And as we touched on earlier, around compliance and ensuring that new drivers coming to the business adhere to the van maintenance procedures to keep compliance standards high, it's exactly the same principle with driver behaviour. And the driving style league table, as you can see on screen here, and the speed analysis reports, and there's a plethora of other risk management reporting available has provided Morson Vital with the data to be able to effectively compare, benchmark and improve drive performance. In terms of how this is managed in their business, each week their business improvement manager runs the telematics data reporting through Quartix to identify which drivers with a lower standard of driving, and they use that sort of simple traffic light system in order to take preventative action before an incident occurs. In the event a driver's score is below the expected standard of driving, then reports and feedback are set up and sent to that driver on a more frequent basis, so they take ownership of their own performance. They can review their performance throughout the day or the week, realizing where they've perhaps gone wrong and made any mistakes, and start to sort of make positive changes in their behaviors to pull their scores back to the level that they should be. If there's no marked improvement in behavior, the business has a strict policy and procedure that drivers follow, which includes online and practical driver training to mitigate accident risk. And following that training program, if drivers are still showing signs of reckless driving, then vehicles are and have been removed from them. That all being said, Morson Vital have very much used, telematics as much of a carrot as opposed to a stick approach. And when it comes to managing driver behaviours, providing recognition for the best performing drivers at both depot and group level has worked very well and introduced some healthy competition. Again, it's been a case of educating drivers to get their buy-in, to be transparent in terms of what data is collected, how it's presented, how it's calculated, so they have a full understanding of that. And they then can understand why, again, back to the education piece, why safe and responsible driving style is not only good for their safety and other road users, but it's good for the company as well. So they're all working towards that same shared goal. And speaking about goals and tangible benefits off the back of safe and fuel efficient driving, fuel, as I'm sure it is for most people on today's session, is a massive part of the cost base. No different at Morson Vital. We spend over £1 million a year on fuel. So therefore, both fuel and vehicle usage are both scrutinised to ensure there are no discrepancies using the telematics reporting. And their drivers, I'm sure like a lot of people today, a lot of organisations on today's call are strictly prohibited from using their vans for personal use. So out of hours reports and alerts are set up to alert Morson Vital to any vehicles that have been used during out of hours. As a side note, Morson Vital have a fleet of 650 vehicles, but as you saw on their company slide, they employ over 1,000 drivers that operate from multiple vehicles within that pool of vehicles. So to help manage driver or behaviour by driver, they utilise driver ID, and that provides live driver information, who's behind the wheel, but also an audit trail of which drivers have used what vehicles, so they can more easily identify the risk profile for each driver. And together with the vehicle inspection check process, this provides the fleet team with a clear audit trail of who's responsible for any damage and fines reported on the vehicles. So just moving on now to driving hours and fatigue risk, which is an area Morson Vital are take very seriously. They strictly follow and adhere to network rail door-to-door policies, using telematics reports to monitor full shift time, including journeys to and from site. If driving and shift hours flag as red, using their in-house traffic light system, hotel stays are arranged to mitigate risk, and the trip reports from Quartix support them with that. They track and manage start and finish times and total driving hours for each driver by using the driver ID system that we alluded to a moment ago on the previous slide. And as an additional measure, Morson Vital also include a fit to drive declaration that the drivers must complete before carrying out their inspection, their vehicle inspection at the start of the shift, to confirm they're safe to drive, they're not showing any signs of impairment or fatigue before using the vehicle. So sadly here, to be clear, outside, and this is to be clear, outside of Morson Vital, there have been fatigue related road deaths in the rail industry. Some of you may recall the case of two mobile rail maintenance staff from a different rail contractor, and they were driving home from their shift on the track side when the driver fell asleep at the wheel, and he crashed into a parked lorry in a lay-by, killing himself and his passenger. Their employer was prosecuted in 5 years ago in 2020 and charged with 3 health and safety offences for failing to carry out a suitable and sufficient risk assessment in respect of fatigue risk, which resulted in a £450,000 fine against the company, as well as £300,000 in costs. But even more damaging and long-lasting than that financial penalty is the management failure and having to live with the guilt that negligence on their part in not ensuring the safety of the drivers has resulted in the loss of life of 2 of their employees. So Morson Vital are acutely aware, aside from the aforementioned incident happening with another rail contractor business, of the risk that long distance and fatigue driving represents. And they use telematics heavily to ensure the drivers work to that minimum rest period of 12 hours between booking off from a turn of duty to then booking on for the next. And to support this, geofence zones are also used to monitor vehicle movements during rest hours, which ensures Morson Vital vehicle usage policy is adhered to, but also further manages fatigue risk, ensuring drivers aren't making additional journeys between shift times when they should be resting. So we're keen to hear your take on how you manage driver fatigue within your business. Again, another quick poll just to get some of your feedback on this issue. We'd be grateful for any responses. See, coming in thick and fast, thank you. Using telematics, we've got a third, 35% of the audience that use telematics to help manage driver fatigue, which is fantastic and endorses what we're saying. 16% are tracking it manually, which is good. 19% are doing it via another system, and 30% are not monitoring working hours closely. And there may be other factors for that, I'm sure. You know, with drivers maybe working shorter shift times and lower mileage vehicles, etc. They don't feel like they need to pay as much attention as perhaps, as I said, Morson Vital do, where it's longer shifts and higher mileages. So thank you very much for your feedback on that, and we'll move on to the final points of our presentation. So just carrying on from the theme of accident prevention and management, over the last few years, Quartix have seen increased demand for the convergence of dashcams and telematics. As such, we launched a cost-effective, cloud-based connected camera solution, which links seamlessly into the Quartix vehicle tracking portal. In the event of an incident or a near miss, sharp braking event, customers are emailed a notification with a link to view the dashcam footage, which again can help debrief drivers so they receive the appropriate feedback and training to mitigate the risk of any future incidents. Customers have also used this footage as a defence mechanism to protect against any erroneous claims, which I'm sure everyone on today's call gets their fair share of. To better manage incident prevention and reporting, Morson Vital upgraded to cloud-based dashcams from an SD card-based camera solution. They experienced a number of issues with driver tampering, and obviously the time and the cost implication of manual retrieval of dashcam footage. The majority of Morson Vital vehicles are now fitted with Quartix's forward-facing cloud-based dashcams, and there are certain departments such as trespassing where it's mandatory for those vehicles to be double crewed. So Morson Vital utilise dual cameras, both forward and driver-facing, to ensure two drivers are in the cab, and that complies with their company policy. The business has also noted and found that, you can see on screen here, that the very presence of connected cameras, which can be accessed remotely by management, has had a positive impact on driving scores, as the team now drive in a safer manner, knowing their behaviour is being more closely monitored and managed. So between the dashcam recordings and the Quartix Check app, which also has an incident section and instructs drivers in the event of a crash what information to capture so they don't leave the scene of an accident without taking down all the necessary information, the fleet team at Morson Vital have experienced numerous tangible business benefits, which include a faster response time to any incidents to support their drivers, protection against fraudulent claims, improving the first notification of loss, which is a massive one for them, so that claims are handled and processed quicker. And as a result of introducing connected cameras across the Morson Vital fleet, the company has achieved a significant return on investment, saving tens of thousands of pounds per year, reducing their insurance claims ratio by a huge 55%. And that's been achieved through their fleet team being able to instantly access footage remotely, send that to their insurer with the first notification of loss report immediately to help dispute any incidents where liability may have otherwise be wrongly assigned to them. So in our final poll of the session, we're very interested to know how many organisations are using dashcams currently. If so, what type of dashcam? I think we had about 90% response rate from the audience on questions, which was great. If we can get a similar amount, we're at 83% of audience participation poll, which is good. Okay, so we've got 88% response rate, which is great. Thank you, everyone. We've got 23% that are using SD card based. Listen, SD card based dashcams still have a place if drivers are, working locally and in and out of depot. The manual retrieval of data is not so much of a headache, shall we say. Great to see that 30% of the audience are realised the benefit of going connected and the ROI that can generate, as evidenced through what we've talked through. And 43% will have said that no, but they would consider it, which suggests that what we've talked about has sparked some curiosity and interest. So thank you very, very much for that. And of course, there are organisations, 6% that have said that we don't intend to. We hear that from customers. With accident rates, they can't sort of justify the level of investment in dash cams. So thank you all very much for your feedback on that poll. So just to sort of close out our presentation now with the last few slides, as well as the crash data, as well as the connected cameras that we've talked through and the benefits of using them within Morson Vital. They also, which should come patch through in a moment, they also use our crash data. So this is standalone reporting that comes from our telematics unit, and in the event of an incident, Morson Vital are able to use this crash data, which reports data at a very granular level, at a rate of 10 hertz or 10 data points per second, to really sort of supplement the dashcam footage and provide a complete picture of events to assist with their post-incident analysis and provide unequivocal evidence of what has taken place. So that's been really invaluable for Morson Vital as well. So just to sort of close out now our presentation and summarize some of the sort of practical actionable steps taken by Morson Vital that every organization, every employee can take to create a strong safety culture. Firstly, embed your expectations in driver inductions to set high standards from the outset, emphasizing the high risk factor for driving carries. Reinforce that driving is an integral part of workplace health and safety. It shouldn't be underestimated, and keep those safety messages visible and frequent. Make reporting vehicle defects easy and immediate with tools such as digital vehicle inspection apps, and then use spot checks to maintain those standards. Proactively use telematics and dash cams to manage driver behaviour, take preventative action before an incident occurs, and also, reward, on the other hand, safe driver behaviours. Give drivers the recognition they deserve for adopting a safe style of driving. And finally, using a data-driven approach to help identify tailored training needs to mitigate risks. So hopefully everyone sort of took something away from our session. We did have it scheduled for an hour. I did say that I'd be giving you some time back, which I'm pleased to do. Really sincere thanks to everyone that's attended today, making vehicle and driver safety a priority. We appreciate all your engagement and feedback in your polls. Most of those polls were 90% response, which is great. We really appreciate that. And as mentioned from the outset, we'll be making a donation to Break, the road safety charity, on behalf of everyone here to support the crucial work that they do to support victims of road crashes and campaign for safer roads. Should you wish to find out any more on the topics we've covered, I'd encourage you all to explore the Break Road Safety Week campaign that we've done this in support of. Driving for Better Business, if you're not familiar with Driving for Better Business, that's a great organisation, and it's got some great free resources around driving for work guidance. If, like Morson Vital, obtaining FORS accreditation has sparked your curiosity, please visit the FORS website. You can find more information on that in order to, for a standard for you to work towards of compliance. And we've actually uploaded some documents as well into our webinar platform, which you can access via the attachments section in the top right hand corner of the screen. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. And that includes the Morson Vital case study. It includes some handouts on the connected dash cam we've just talked about QCheck, the vehicle inspection app, and some other good bits as well. And finally, if you'd like to scan the QR code on the screen, that'll take you Quartix, more information on Quartix's products and services. So we're going to wrap up with some Q&A. I think I've seen 1 or 2 questions come through the portal whilst I've been speaking, which I'll happily address now. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop those into the question section, and I'll pick them up now if we want to finish with some Q&A. Okay, so yeah, I've got quite a few questions here. Okay, we'll fly through these. So the presentation is available to share with colleagues. David, thank you for that. We'll get, I think everyone attending today will get a copy of the presentation we've run through. Can safety inspections be recorded in the app with areas with no signal? They can, yeah. So drivers can still complete the inspection, submit it, and when the device has internet coverage, that will then be submitted through. The defects will go through to the relevant managers responsible for that. So yes is the answer to that. Are the dash cams and inspection apps provided through a third party? No. Quartix have developed both of these solutions, both the dash cam and the inspection app, in-house. Like our vehicle tracking technology, we're not beholden to any third-party suppliers. We do it all in-house and fully end-to-end. So final questions coming in now. Is the fit to drive declaration part of your solution? It is, absolutely. It's incorporated within that. The drivers have to complete that before doing the inspection. Okay, thanks for your question, Paul. Does your software interact with any other fleet management software? It does. The open architecture of our system means that you can pull all of the raw data, as much or as little of the data, both on the inspection and on the system, into any of your back office and fleet management systems. So you can do that, Paul, and we can send you the API document explaining how that process works. That's all included as part of our service. Is there any means of membership to Quartix? Yeah, see, Quartix are a private company, private organisation. We're a telematics supplier that obviously provides core business vehicle tracking and the other obviously ancillary products and services. The dash cams and the pre-use inspection checks are form part of our overall telematics offering. So customers will typically, Dave, pay us a fixed cost per vehicle per month for that service. So it is sort of a paid subscription to use our solution. Is dashcam footage still captured when the ignition is turned off? It is. So we hear this a lot from other customers in the market, where it's a bit of a bugbear and a vehicle involved in an incident, a crash, and goes to a compound, and they've got to wait for the ignition to be turned on before they can download the footage. That's not the case with our dashcam solution. You can still download videos with the ignition turned off. Thank you for that. So unless anyone has any other questions, I think we'll finish there. Thank you everyone very much for your time, and hope you found the presentation insightful. Cheers.